There is a journey none of us would ever willingly choose, yet so many tender souls have walked through it. The journey of being consumed, drained, and broken down by a narcissist. Carl Jung once called it a collision with the shadow. Imagine that, your own light colliding with the emptiness of another. And in that collision, everything you thought was safe begins to shatter. At first glance, this looks like pure tragedy. It feels like betrayal, like punishment, like being left out in the cold by life itself. But if you dare to look deeper, if you allow yourself to see through the tears, you'll find it is not only suffering, it is an initiation. It is a sacred passage. The darkness doesn't arrive to destroy you. It arrives as the very soil in which your rebirth will grow. When you are an empath, your presence is like a candle in a dark room. You don't even have to try. The flame of your being gives warmth. People feel seen in your presence. They feel safe. They feel understood. And yet, just as light draws the moth, that same flame can attract the predator. The narcissist sees your glow, not as something to honor, but as something to consume. They are starving for what they lack, and they think they can feed on you to fill the void inside. At first, it doesn't even feel like abuse. It feels like being chosen, like being special, like finally being the one who matters. But that illusion doesn't last. Soon enough, you find yourself bending, sacrificing, dimming your light to keep the peace. You don't notice when the shift happens, but one day you wake up and realize you are no longer living for yourself. You are surviving for them. That is the moment when your soul begins to feel emptied out, like a well that has been drawn dry. And the cruelest trick is how they make you believe it's your fault. They hand you their shame, their rage, their emptiness, and you hold it as if it belongs to you. You wonder, maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I am the problem. Maybe if I try harder, they will love me again. This is the inversion of your gift. The very empathy that once made you a healer now becomes the chain that binds you. You become a mirror for their wounds, carrying what they refuse to face. And little by little, you lose touch with your own truth. Jung understood this process as a kind of fragmentation of the self. To survive, pieces of who you really are retreat into hiding. It feels like you are vanishing, like your life is dissolving into someone else's storm. And it hurts in a way that is hard to put into words, because you are punished not for being cruel, but for being good. Yet, as devastating as this collapse feels, it is also the threshold to something new. There comes a point where you simply cannot bend any further. Your compassion hits its limit. Your excuses crumble under the weight of reality. And suddenly, everything falls apart. That moment, the dark night of the soul, feels like death. And in a way, it is the death of illusions. It is the death of the self that believed love required self-erasure. This stage is brutal. Anxiety grips you. Depression weighs you down. Your body feels sick. Your mind feels broken. And your heart feels like it has no reason left to keep beating. Yet beneath all of that despair lies a truth the mind cannot see. This breaking is not pathology. It is psychology. It is your inner being saying, "No more. It's time to come home to yourself." Through the cracks of that breakdown, light begins to enter. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, you realize your empathy was never the problem. What hurt you was the absence of boundaries around it. What destroyed you was the illusion that being needed was the same as being loved. And then, like a seed buried in winter, something stirs within you. You begin to reclaim your energy. You begin to see manipulation for what it is, rather than what you used to believe it meant. You notice the games, the guilt trips, the drama, but this time, you don't play. This time, you don't give away your light to feed someone else's emptiness. This is the rebirth Jung hinted at. The moment the empath transforms into something greater, compassionate, yes, but also sovereign, loving, but not enslaved, open, but not unguarded. You begin to carry empathy with discernment, love with boundaries, and the narcissist, who once fed on your every reaction, now finds themselves powerless. They cannot touch you anymore, because your energy is no longer available for their taking. What once felt like weakness now becomes your greatest strength. Your empathy, once unconscious, becomes conscious. You choose when to open your heart and when to protect it. You choose who to let in and who to walk away from. You give, not because you are compelled, but because you are full. And here is the deeper mystery. This transformation is not only for you. When one empath rises out of the ashes, the ripple extends far beyond their personal life. You become living proof that sensitivity is not a curse, but a gift. You become a model of love with strength, compassion with wisdom, openness with boundaries. Other empaths look at you and whisper, if they can rise, maybe I can too. Jung called this the privilege of a lifetime, to become who you truly are. And in truth, this is what the entire ordeal has been pointing you toward. Individuation, wholeness, the end of being divided between who you are and who the world wants you to be. Yes, the abuse was devastating. Yes, it left scars. But those scars are not disfigurements. They are inscriptions of your becoming. You are no longer just the wounded one. You are the wounded healer, the one who can stand in both light and shadow, and from that place, guide others toward their own awakening. So, if you find yourself anywhere along this journey, I want you to know this. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are a consciousness that feels deeply in a world that often avoids feeling altogether. And that is not your weakness. It is your power. The darkness was never here to extinguish you. It was here to shape you, to temper you, to prepare you. It was here so that when you rise, you do not just shine, you illuminate. 1. Soul extraction. There comes a moment in the life of every empath who has crossed paths with a narcissist when the air itself feels heavy. It's not just sadness, not just disappointment. It feels as though the very breath that once moved freely through your chest has been captured, siphoned off, and replaced with something foreign. You notice that your laughter no longer comes as easily. Your body no longer feels as alive. And even your thoughts seem to circle endlessly around someone else's needs, moods, and opinions. This is the stage I call soul extraction. It doesn't happen all at once. At the beginning, you are often unaware of what is being taken from you. You might even believe you are giving it willingly. You tell yourself that love is about sacrifice, that patience is noble, that if you just hold on a little longer, the tenderness you offer will awaken tenderness in them. You hope that if you pour yourself out enough, they will finally see you, finally love you, finally give back what you have given so freely. But here is the brutal truth: they are not feeding you. They are feeding on you. The more you give, the more they consume. And like a thirsty traveler drinking salt water, the more they take, the more insatiable they become. The narcissist does not simply want your affection. They crave your essence. They want to deposit their own shame, anger, and emptiness into you so that they can walk away lighter. While you walk away carrying the weight that was never yours to hold, they hand you their darkness like a bundle of bricks. And because you are empathetic, you clutch those bricks to your chest, mistaking them for responsibility, for duty, for love. It is here, in this stage, that many empaths begin to believe the lie, I am the problem. You replay arguments in your head, searching for where you might have spoken too sharply or failed to understand. You wonder if you are too needy, too sensitive, too emotional. And every time you bend to adjust yourself, you shrink a little more. Slowly, you stop recognizing your own reflection. From the outside, it might look like weakness, but from the inside, it is a kind of hypnosis. You are no longer acting from your own center. You are reacting to theirs. Every sigh, every silence, every flare of anger from them sends shockwaves through your nervous system. You live on edge, walking on eggshells, monitoring every move, as though one misstep could bring the house crashing down. And in that constant vigilance, your soul fragments. Little pieces of you slip into hiding just to survive. Your laughter retreats. Your creativity curls up in a corner. Your dreams gather dust because all of your energy is spent keeping peace, soothing wounds that are not yours, and extinguishing fires that were never started by you. This is why it feels like soul extraction, because it's not only your energy being drained, it's your very sense of self dissolving in someone else's storm. Yet, and this is where the paradox lives, they cannot truly steal your soul. They cannot own what is eternal within you. What they do instead is project their own emptiness onto you. And because you feel so deeply, you take it in as though it belongs to you. It is not theft in the literal sense. It is reflection. You are standing in front of a mirror that shows you everything unhealed within them. And because of your empathy, you confuse it for your own reflection. This is where the perspective of consciousness and quantum understanding becomes vital. If you see it only through the lens of blame, you will stay trapped. You will see yourself as victim, them as villain, and the cycle will replay in endless variations. But when you step back and see it as resonance, as an entanglement of frequencies, you begin to reclaim your power. A narcissist thrives in the unconscious exchange of energy. They survive by keeping you blind to what is happening. The moment you awaken, the moment you realize, this emptiness I feel is not mine, this shame I carry is not born in me, the illusion begins to crack. You cannot unknow that truth once you see it. And with that recognition comes the first step of reclamation. It is not dramatic. It is not loud. It often comes in quiet whispers, like the faint return of your own heartbeat after thinking it had stopped. You might notice yourself saying no for the first time without apologizing. You might feel a sudden surge of anger, not destructive anger, but the holy anger that reminds you, I deserve to exist. 2. You might look in the mirror and for a fleeting moment see not the broken reflection they've told you you are, but the flicker of the person you were before the storm. This stage, as devastating as it feels, is also the turning point, because once you see that they have never truly taken your soul, but only convinced you to hand it over, do you understand that your power has been within you all along? And power, once remembered, cannot be unseen. I often compare it to a tree that has grown in harsh winds. At first, you see only the scars where branches have been torn away, the bent trunk from years of storms. But if you look closer, you notice something else. The roots have grown deeper, thicker, stronger than they would have in perfect weather. And because of those roots, the tree will not only survive, it will flourish. That is what happens in soul extraction. You are bent, but not broken. You are wounded, but not destroyed. What feels like the end is really the beginning of remembering. They never took your soul. They only held up a mirror to the part of you that forgot how to guard it. And now, as you step into awareness, you begin to draw those scattered fragments back to yourself, piece by piece, breath by breath. And perhaps the most liberating realization is this: once you see the game, you no longer have to play it. Once you recognize that their emptiness is not your responsibility, you stop carrying it. And in that release, your soul begins to return, not as the fragile self you once were, but as the sovereign being you were always meant to be. 2. Dark night of the soul. There is a point in the journey when everything you thought you knew begins to collapse. It's not just the loss of a relationship. It's not only the pain of betrayal. It goes deeper than that. It feels like the very ground of your being gives way, and you are left falling into an abyss with no bottom. This is what many traditions call the dark night of the soul. In this place, trust feels broken. You lose faith in love, because the love you gave so freely was used as a weapon against you. You lose faith in yourself, because you can no longer tell where you end and someone else begins. And perhaps most painfully, you lose faith in life itself. Because how could something sacred allow so much cruelty to exist? The world no longer looks safe. The future no longer looks hopeful. Even the mirror no longer shows a face you recognize. At first, you may fight it. You cling to the fragments of what was. You tell yourself stories that maybe things weren't so bad. Maybe they will change. Maybe you misjudged. Anything to avoid the unbearable truth that the person you trusted has become the architect of your undoing. But eventually, reality seeps through. The mask falls, the illusion shatters, and you are left with nothing but the raw ache of loss. It feels like death, and in many ways, it is. Not the death of your body, but the death of an identity, the death of the self that survived by pleasing, fixing, and carrying the burdens of others. That self cannot survive the weight of truth, and so, it crumbles. What makes this stage so terrifying is the emptiness it brings. Days blur together. Your energy vanishes. The things that once brought joy feel meaningless. Silence grows louder, and you feel like a ghost in your own life. Depression may grip you, anxiety may haunt you, and your body may even begin to ache under the strain. This is not weakness. This is not failure. This is what happens when the soul begins to dismantle everything false, so that only the real can remain. From a quantum perspective, the dark night is not an ending, but a doorway. Just as in physics, when one possibility collapses, countless others emerge. The same is true here. The collapse of the identity you once clung to is not punishment. It is the space from which new potential can arise. The death of one timeline makes room for another. The dark night may feel like annihilation, but in truth, it is expansion in disguise. I want to share an image with you. Imagine a seed planted in the soil. Before it becomes a tree, before it ever feels sunlight, that seed must first split open. From the outside, it looks like destruction. The shell breaks apart. The seed is no longer what it once was. But that breaking is the only way the life inside can grow. So too with you. The breaking is not the end of you. It is the beginning of the self you were always meant to become. In this stage, the greatest temptation is despair. To believe that the pain is permanent, that the emptiness will never end. But the truth is, what feels like emptiness is actually a clearing. What feels like loss is actually space. The parts of you that were bound by false roles and old patterns are falling away, making room for a more authentic expression of who you are. It is during the dark night that many people awaken to their shadow, not the shadow of the abuser, but their own. This does not mean you are to blame. It means you are being shown the places within you that colluded with your suffering, the people-pleasing, the avoidance of conflict, the longing to be needed at any cost. Facing these parts is excruciating, but it is also liberating, for only when you see them clearly can you choose differently. I know this stage intimately. It feels like you are stripped bare. It feels as though your heart has been turned inside out. And yet, within that nakedness lies a strange kind of purity. For when all else is gone, what remains is the essence of you. The part that was never destroyed, never broken, never taken away. That essence is waiting for you in the center of the dark night. And here lies the paradox: you think you are losing yourself, but what you are really losing is the false self. You think life is taking everything from you, But what it is really doing is returning you to yourself, slowly, piece by piece. As you sit in the silence, you begin to feel the faintest pulse of your true being, a stillness deeper than thought, a presence beyond fear. It does not happen all at once. Healing in the dark night is not a sudden sunrise, but the gradual brightening of the horizon. One day you notice you can breathe again without the tightness in your chest. Another day, you laugh unexpectedly, and for a moment, the heaviness lifts. These small returns are signs that the worst is passing. They are proof that you are not ending, you are transforming. And perhaps the most important lesson of this stage is surrender. You cannot fight your way out of the dark night. You cannot strategize or analyze your way to the dawn. The only path is through. The only medicine is to allow, to soften, to breathe, to sit in the not knowing until clarity arises on its own. It is in the surrender, not the struggle, that the rebirth begins. So, if you find yourself in the middle of your own dark night, know this: you are not broken. You are not abandoned by life. You are being remade. Just as the night sky is darkest before dawn, your soul is gathering strength in the stillness, preparing for the light to return. And when it does, you will not be the same. You will not go back to who you were before. You will emerge with deeper roots, with clearer sight, with a heart no longer fooled by illusions. The love you carry will no longer be chained to the need for approval. The empathy you offer will no longer drain you, but flow from a place of fullness. The dark night of the soul is not the end of your story. It is the chapter that ensures the rest of your story will be lived in truth. It is the shadowed passage through which you return to the light, not the borrowed light of pleasing others, but the steady flame of your own awakened self. 3. The light trap. There is something undeniable about the presence of an empath. You can walk into a room and, without even speaking a word, people sense your energy. It's not loud or commanding. It's not the kind of attention that demands the spotlight. It's keener, softer, yet far more magnetic. People feel at ease around you. They feel understood without having to explain. They feel safe, as if they've stepped into a sanctuary that protects them from the harshness of the world. This is the gift of empathy. It is like a frequency that you carry in your very being. You don't have to try to project it. You simply are it. And because energy cannot be hidden, others tune into that frequency the moment they come near. The broken, the weary, the ones carrying unspoken wounds. They gravitate toward you like a traveler drawn to a warm fire on a cold night. But here is where the paradox begins. That same warmth, that same light, does not only draw those who seek healing, it also draws those who seek to feed. Just as moths are drawn to a flame, your energy attracts not only love, but also parasites. Not everyone comes to your light with gratitude. Some come because they see in you a source of fuel, a well they believe they can endlessly drink from. In the beginning, it can be hard to tell the difference. To be needed can feel like love. To be depended upon can feel like connection. When someone leans on you, when they tell you they cannot live without your kindness, it awakens something deep within you. The part of you that wants to matter, that wants to heal, that wants to give meaning to your presence in the world. And so you open your heart wider. You give more of yourself. You extend beyond your limits. And for a while, it feels fulfilling. You feel chosen. You feel important. But slowly, something shifts. The giving no longer feels like joy. It begins to feel like obligation. The comfort you once offered becomes expectation. The space you created with your light becomes a prison where your own needs are neglected. This is the light trap. It is not set with malice in the beginning. It is not always obvious. It begins with the innocent desire to share what is good in you, but without discernment, without boundaries. Your gift becomes a burden. You find yourself drained, not because your light has dimmed, But because you have not learned to protect it, it took me years to recognize this in my own life. I used to think that to shine meant to give everything away. I thought being kind meant never saying no. I thought being compassionate meant absorbing every story, every wound, every tear that someone placed in my hands. I didn't realize that in confusing being needed with being valued, I was allowing myself to be consumed. There is a deep difference between love and use. Love nurtures, use de plaît. And when you are caught in the light trap, you often cannot tell the two apart. You say to yourself, they need me, so this must be love. But real love does not drain you. Real love expands you. Real love honors the giver as much as the gift. This is the first great lesson of empathy, to learn discernment, to see clearly that not everyone who is drawn to your light comes with good intentions. Some come because they are ready to grow beside you. Others come because they have no intention of growing at all. They simply want to take. If you do not know the difference, you risk mistaking depletion for devotion. It is not easy to draw this line. For the empath, it feels almost unnatural. We are wired to give, to soothe, to understand. Saying no can feel like betrayal. Setting boundaries can feel like rejection. But without them, your gift is not sustainable. A flame without protection burns itself out. A river without banks floods and loses its power to flow with direction. So the journey of the light trap is to recognize that your light is sacred, and not everyone is meant to have access to it. It is to see that boundaries are not walls that keep love out. They are doors that ensure your love flows, where it can be honored and reciprocated. From a deeper perspective, even this trap has its purpose. Because it is only when you felt the exhaustion of being consumed that you begin to realize the necessity of balance. It is only when you've mistaken being needed for being loved that you begin to understand the true essence of love. The pain of the light trap is the soil in which wisdom grows. When you finally awaken from it, you begin to carry your light differently. You no longer hold it out like an endless offering bowl to anyone who asks. You cradle it with reverence. You decide, with clarity, who you allow into its warmth, and in doing so, your light doesn't dim. It shines brighter, because it is no longer entangled in constant depletion. It radiates with purity and strength. I remember a time when I thought my worth depended on how much I could give away. I thought saying yes made me good, and saying no made me selfish. It wasn't until I was emptied, until I felt the fatigue of carrying burdens that were never mine, that I realized true generosity cannot come from emptiness. It must come from fullness. And so, the lesson of the light trap is this: your empathy is a gift, but it is not a currency to be spent until nothing remains. It is a sacred flame, and sacred flames must be tended with care. Learning to distinguish between those who come to be warmed and those who come to consume is the first act of self-respect. It is the beginning of wisdom and the foundation for everything that follows. If you are in this stage now, know that you are not wrong for shining. Your light is not the problem. The problem is forgetting that it is yours to protect, and the moment you remember that, you step out of the trap and into the power of conscious empathy. 4. Phoenix Rebirth. There comes a moment after the ashes settle, when you realize something extraordinary has happened. You did not just survive, you transformed. The person who once bent under the weight of manipulation, who once gave until nothing remained, now stands differently. You carry the same heart. Yes, but it beats with a new rhythm. Your empathy has not vanished, but it has evolved. It has grown wings. This stage, often called the rebirth, feels like becoming the phoenix. And if you've ever been through it, you know that metaphor is not an exaggeration. You really do feel as though you burned down to nothing, that every illusion, every false layer of yourself was reduced to ash. And then, almost without realizing, you rise. not as who you were, but as who you are. The greatest shift in this stage is not that you stop feeling others' emotions, but that you stop absorbing them. You still see pain in people's eyes, but you no longer confuse it for your responsibility. You still sense the emptiness in another's heart, but you no longer believe it is yours to fill. You still recognize the wounded child behind a narcissist's rage, but you no longer sacrifice yourself trying to heal it. You have learned to stand beside suffering without being swallowed by it. That is the essence of reborn empathy, compassion with boundaries. It is empathy that loves without self-erasure. It is kindness that does not come at the cost of your own wholeness. And this shift is what terrifies the narcissist most, because their power relied entirely on your inability to distinguish between their wounds and your own. When you reach this point, you notice your energy field feels different. In quantum terms, it is as though your vibration has recalibrated. You no longer resonate with the frequency of victimhood. You resonate with sovereignty. You are no longer a match to those who need to feed off your light. Instead, you become a magnet for those who respect it. I remember my own turning point. After years of giving until I felt hollow, I woke up one morning and realized something had changed. The air felt lighter. My chest felt spacious. And for the first time, in a long time, I wasn't waiting for anyone's approval. I wasn't replaying conversations in my mind. I wasn't preparing excuses. I wasn't shrinking to fit someone else's comfort. There was simply peace, and from that peace, a strength I had never known before. That is the gift of the Phoenix stage. It is not about becoming hardened or cold. Quite the opposite. You become softer, but with clarity. You become open, but with discernment. You love, but you love consciously, and because of that, your love is deeper than it has ever been. Because it is no longer tangled with fear. People around you begin to notice. Some will say, "You've changed," and they are right. You have. But what they may not realize is that what has changed is not your essence, but your relationship to it. You are no longer giving from emptiness, no longer serving from compulsion. You are giving from fullness. You are serving from freedom. And with that comes a beautiful paradox. You actually give more now than you ever did before. But it costs you nothing. Why? Because what you offer no longer leaks out of your wounds. It flows from your wholeness. This stage also brings a new kind of sight. You begin to recognize the patterns you once fell into before they can take hold again. The excessive charm, the guilt trips, the subtle testing of boundaries. You spot them almost instantly. Not because you are cynical, but because your awareness has sharpened. Your empathy is no longer blind. It is conscious. From a spiritual perspective, this is individuation. What Jung described as becoming whole. Not perfect, not flawless, but undivided. You are no longer split between who you are and who others want you to be. You walk in your own center. You move from your own ground. And this groundedness is what makes you untouchable by manipulation. Imagine a tree once bent in every direction by the wind. After the storm passes, its trunk grows thicker, its roots die deeper, and it no longer sways so easily. It still stands in the same soil, still feels the breeze, but now it holds its shape. That is you in the Phoenix stage. The winds of others' emotions may blow, but you are not uprooted. And with this stability comes freedom. You begin to live for yourself, not selfishly, but consciously. You allow joy back into your life. Not the fragile joy that depends on someone else's mood, but the solid joy of being aligned with your own truth. You create. If you laugh, you love again, but from a place of sovereignty. This transformation also ripples outward. Other empaths who see you realize that sensitivity does not have to mean sacrifice. They see that boundaries do not kill love, they protect it. They see that healing is possible, even after the deepest wounds. And in witnessing your rebirth, they find the courage to begin their own. You become, in Jung's words, the wounded healer, not because your wounds define you, but because they have refined you. You carry wisdom carved from pain, and you use it not to preach, but simply to live authentically. And in living, you show others the path. The Phoenix stage is not the end of difficulty. Life still brings challenges. People will still disappoint. The world will still carry its share of shadows. But the difference is that now, you no longer collapse under it. You know who you are. You know what is yours and what is not. And that knowledge is liberation. So if you are walking through your own ashes right now, wondering if anything of you will survive, let me assure you, you will not only survive, you will rise. The breaking did not destroy you, it revealed you. The burning did not end you, it purified you. And what emerges from that fire is not weaker, not smaller, but truer. The phoenix does not rise despite the flames. It rises because of them. And so do you. 5. The lesson of resonant frequencies. One of the most powerful realizations on this journey is the discovery that every relationship, every connection, is a matter of resonance. It is not random. It is not coincidence. It is vibration meeting. Vibration, frequency, meeting frequency. And what you resonate with is not determined by your intentions or your wishes. It is shaped by the state of your being, the energy you carry in each moment. For years, many of us who are empaths have wondered why we seem to attract the same patterns over and over again. Why the people who enter our lives often carry similar wounds, similar demands, similar forms of taking. Why, no matter how many times we leave one relationship behind, we find ourselves repeating the same story with another. At first, it feels like bad luck. Then it feels like a curse. But in truth, it is resonance. When you are in a state of longing for approval, your energy broadcasts a certain signal. That signal says, I will bend if you need me to. I will carry more than my share. I will sacrifice myself in the hope that you will finally see me, finally value me. And those who thrive on taking, those who seek supply rather than love, are finally attuned to this frequency. They feel it, even if they cannot name it. They hear the music of your soul and recognize it as a song they can consume. It is a painful truth, but also a liberating one. Because once you understand that relationships are a matter of resonance, you realize that changing your outer circumstances will never be enough. You cannot escape the pattern by switching partners, changing jobs, or moving cities. If the frequency within you remains the same, wherever you go, the resonance will follow. The only way out is to shift the vibration itself. This is where the lesson deepens. For when you begin to heal, when you begin to release the need for constant validation, your frequency starts to change. It is subtle at first. The desperation softens. The compulsion to fix others loosens. The constant apologizing for simply existing fades. In its place, a new energy emerges. The energy of sufficiency, the energy of I am enough. And as that energy takes root, something extraordinary begins to happen. You no longer resonate with those who come only to take. They may approach, but they cannot latch on. Their tactics lose power. Their words no longer hypnotize. It is as though the cords that once tied you together have dissolved. They cannot draw from you what you no longer unconsciously offer. Instead, you begin to attract different souls. People who, like you, are learning to nourish themselves. People who meet you not with endless need, but with mutuality. People who can hold their own center, who can offer love without strings, who can celebrate your light without trying to steal it. These relationships feel different from the start. They feel lighter, freer, more balanced. Think of two strings on a guitar. If one string is plucked, another string of the same frequency will vibrate in harmony. This is not theory. It is physics. Resonance is the law of nature. And your soul, your energy field, works the same way. When you vibrate at the frequency of lack, you will resonate with those who amplify that lack. When you vibrate at the frequency of fullness, you will resonate with those who also live from fullness. I remember a time when I could not believe this was possible. I thought my destiny was to always be the giver, to always be drained, to always find myself in the same exhausting dance. But the moment I began to raise my frequency, not by forcing it, but by tending to myself with love, everything changed. It did not happen overnight, but slowly, the faces around me shifted. I noticed conversations that once drained me no longer interested me. I noticed I was less drawn to chaos, less addicted to drama, and without even trying, the people who remained in my life were those who honored my boundaries and cherished my presence. This is why the lesson of resonance is so essential. It reminds us that the work is not to fix others, but to tune ourselves. It is not to force the world to change, but to embody the change in our own vibration. As your energy lifts into sufficiency, you no longer ask others to complete you. And because you no longer ask, you stop resonating with those who prey on that request. Of course, this does not mean every relationship will suddenly be easy or flawless. Human beings are complex. We all carry wounds. But the difference is that your relationships no longer orbit around depletion. They no longer require you to sacrifice your essence. They no longer demand that you shrink so someone else can feel whole. Instead, they become spaces where both souls grow, where both lights shine, where giving and receiving flow in balance. In quantum language, you could say you have shifted timelines. In psychological language, you could say you have individuated, but in the simplest language, you could say this: you have learned to distinguish between love and use. And once you know that difference in your bones, you cannot go back. So if you are listening to this and wondering why the same painful patterns keep repeating, I invite you not to blame yourself, but to ask, what frequency am I resonating with? What signal am I sending into the field of life? The answer is not found in judgment, but in awareness. And awareness is the first step to transformation. When you choose to nourish yourself, when you learn to say no, when you stop chasing approval, your frequency shifts. And as it shifts, so too does the music of your life. New people appear, old patterns fall away. What once felt like fate reveals itself as resonance. And resonance, once understood, can always be changed. The lesson of resonant frequencies is this: you are not doomed to repeat the past. You are not cursed to attract the same pain forever. You are an energetic being, and your relationships are mirrors of your vibration. When you lift into sufficiency, when you embody fullness, you will find that the world responds in kind. And then, for the first time, you discover that being seen does not require being consumed. That being loved does not mean being drained. That true connection is not about filling each other's emptiness, but about amplifying each other's wholeness. This is not theory. It is the law of life. Just as two strings vibrate together when tuned, so too do souls find harmony when they share the same frequency. And your greatest task, your greatest freedom, is to choose the frequency you carry. 6. Becoming a conscious bearer of light. There comes a time, after the storms have passed and the lessons have settled deep into your bones, when you realize you are no longer the same person who first walked into the fire. The pain is still a part of you, but it no longer defines you. The shadows that once haunted you have become teachers, shaping you into someone clearer, wiser, and more alive. And in this new way of being, you find yourself not just healed, but transformed into something larger, a conscious bearer of light. To understand what this means, we need to revisit the earlier stages. At first, your light shone unconsciously. It radiated from you, without boundaries, without intention. You gave, because it was your nature. Because empathy flowed through you like water, but water without a vessel spills everywhere. And so, your gift was consumed by those who could not appreciate it. Your light was taken for granted, exploited, drained. Now, after moving through collapse and rebirth, something has changed. Your light has not dimmed, but it has become intentional. It no longer spills out carelessly. It flows with direction. You still give, but you give with wisdom. You still love, but you love with discernment. And this shift changes everything. Not only for you, but for those around you. Being a conscious bearer of light does not mean you become perfect. It does not mean you are always radiant, always peaceful, always centered. It means that you have learned to choose how and where to shine. You no longer give out of compulsion. You no longer respond to every cry for attention, every demand, every manipulation. Instead, you pause, you breathe, you listen to the quiet voice inside. And from that place of alignment, you decide, is this where my light belongs? This is not selfishness. It is maturity. It is the recognition that your light is sacred, and sacred things must be tended. To pour your energy into spaces where it is wasted or abused is not generosity. It is neglect of your own soul. To give without consciousness is to betray the very gift you were entrusted with. And so now, your giving becomes deliberate, guided by love, and framed by boundaries. When this happens, something remarkable unfolds. You become not only free from manipulation, but also a catalyst for awakening in others. Your presence itself becomes a message without preaching, without forcing, without trying to convert anyone. You radiate a new way of being. People sense it. They notice that you can be compassionate without being consumed, that you can be kind without being taken advantage of, that you can stand in love without losing yourself. And this recognition stirs something in them. It plants a seed. For the truth is, transformation is contagious. Just as fear spreads, so too does freedom. Just as pain echoes, so too does healing. By embodying conscious empathy, you send ripples through the collective field. Ripples that whisper, there is another way. You do not have to suffer in silence. You do not have to give yourself away to be loved. You can live in wholeness. And from that wholeness, you can give more deeply than you ever imagined. I remember the first time I noticed this in myself. After years of being drained by others, I finally began to practice saying no. At first, it felt unnatural, almost cruel. But over time, I noticed something unexpected. The people around me began to change too. Those who thrived on my lack of boundaries faded from my life. And those who remained started treating me differently. Not with entitlement, but with respect. My shift had created a shift in them. This is the hidden power of becoming a conscious bearer of light. You not only free yourself, you elevate those around you. Your boundaries teach others how to honor their own. Your discernment shows others that love and clarity can coexist. Your sovereignty inspires others to reclaim theirs. You become a living example, a mirror of possibility. And perhaps most profoundly, you realize that your journey was never just about you. The abuse, the collapse, the rebirth. It was not random. It was initiation. By surviving it, by transforming through it, you have become part of something larger, the collective awakening of empathy itself. In a world that so often confuses power with control, your life becomes a demonstration that true power lies in presence, in compassion with strength, in love with wisdom. But here is the simple truth: being a conscious bearer of light is not about trying harder. It is not about forcing yourself to be spiritual or enlightened. It is about remembering who you are beneath the scars, remembering the sovereignty that was always yours, remembering that your sensitivity is not a flaw, but a frequency. A frequency that, once tuned with awareness, becomes a force of healing far beyond what you can see. So, when you shine now, it is not a desperate plea for recognition. It is not a survival mechanism. It is an offering, a gift given freely, because you know you are already whole. You shine not to prove yourself, but because that is what light does. It illuminates, and in this illumination, you no longer walk as a victim of circumstance. You walk as a conscious creator. You no longer wait for the world to validate you. You anchor yourself in your own truth. And from that anchored place, your presence becomes medicine, not only for yourself, but for the collective. This is what it means to become a conscious bearer of light. Not a saint, not a savior, but a human being who has faced the darkness and emerged radiant with wisdom. A person who can hold love without losing themselves, who can walk through the world with an open heart and steady boundaries. A soul who understands that every interaction, every relationship, every moment is an opportunity to shine consciously. So if you are here now, if you have walked through the 4 stages and the lessons beyond, know this: you are not only healed, you are transformed. Your very presence is a beacon. You are proof that pain can become power, that wounds can become wisdom, that light, when carried with consciousness, can change not only a life, but a world. From darkness to awakening, the gift hidden in every stage. So, if you find yourself in any of these 6 stages, I want you to hold on to one truth: you are not being punished. You are being reshaped. Life is not casting you aside. It is carving you into someone truer, fuller, and freer than you have ever been. The light trap was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to awaken your awareness, to show you that not all who are drawn to your flame come to honor it. It taught you the difference between being needed and being valued. It asked you to look closely, to see clearly, to protect what is sacred within you. That lesson of awareness is not small. It is the first step toward freedom. The soul extraction, painful as it was not a theft of your essence. It was a mirror reflecting back the boundaries you had not yet built. It forced you to see the places where you handed away your power, where your empathy became a leash tied to another's emptiness. And in recognizing that, you began to take your power back. That stage was your initiation into self-respect, the dark night of the soul, perhaps the most terrifying of all. Stripped you bare. It took away illusions. It took away false hopes. It left you face to face with yourself, with no distractions, no masks, no escapes. And though it felt like death, it was actually the birth of your strength. For only in the depths of despair can you discover the unshakable ground within you. That night was your doorway into power. And then came the Phoenix Rebirth. From the ashes of all that had fallen apart, you rose, not as you once were, but as you were always meant to be, with empathy intact but now woven with discernment, with love alive, but no longer chained to sacrifice, with a heart that could care without collapsing. That rebirth was your liberation. Yet the journey did not end there. The lessons of resonance reminded you that every relationship is an echo, a reflection of the frequency you carry. When you resonated with lack, you found those who mirrored that lack. When you began to live from sufficiency, you attracted those who honored it. This was not theory, but natural law, as certain as 2 strings vibrating in harmony. This stage taught you that you are not a victim of chance. You are the author of your frequency. And finally, you became a conscious bearer of light, no longer giving reflexively, no longer shining indiscriminately, but offering your light with intention, with wisdom, with boundaries. You discovered that true love is not reckless, but deliberate, not compulsive, but free. And in living this way, you became more than healed. You became an agent of awakening for the collective. Each stage, though painful, carried a gift: awareness, boundaries, strength, freedom, resonance, consciousness. Together, they did not just heal you, they reshaped you into someone who does not merely survive, but who illuminates. This is the secret. No one tells you when you are in the middle of the storm. The darkness is not your enemy. It is your sculptor. It chisels away the false layers, the roles you thought you had to play, the masks you believed were necessary to be loved. And beneath it all, it reveals the essence that was always there, the essence of your truest self. I know it may not feel that way when you are in the midst of it. In the light trap, you may feel like your gift is a curse. In the soul extraction, you may feel like you are vanishing. In the dark night, you may feel like you are dying. But from where I stand, having walked through those fires, I can tell you, you are not dying. You are being reborn. The cracks in you are not signs of weakness. They are places where the light is breaking through. The emptiness is not a void. It is space being cleared for something new. The ending is not the final word. It is the beginning of a different story. And in time, you will look back on all of it. The confusion, the heartbreak, the despair, and you will see it not as punishment, but as preparation. You will see that every tear watered the soil of your growth, that every scar became a line of wisdom etched into your being, that every collapse carried within it the seeds of a greater rising. So, let the darkness come. Let it do its work. Do not fear it, for it cannot destroy what is eternal in you. It can only strip away what is false. Trust that when the night is over, when the fire has burned, when the ashes have cooled, you will step forward not as the broken, but as the reborn. You were not born only to survive. You were born to shine with intention, to shine with love, to shine with consciousness. And when you do, you not only free yourself, you light the path for others, still wandering in the night. And so, remember this: the darkness is not your enemy. It is the stepping stone that brings you home, to the place where you do not just love, you love awake.